indication. There's no let up, and we're doing the right things. I just see the company doing the right things, that we're emphasizing the right things, and we definitely have the right field leadership, that's taken us to the next level. So, Bill, I always appreciate you having me on with you. It's always a thrill. I brag about the fact that I am on with Bill Orender once a month, so I'm always excited about that. So, but I appreciate it, Bill.
John, thank you very much. I want to have you make a comment. We sometimes take for granted these incentives that the companies put out, like the iPad. Sometimes you're like me. My mind just doesn't go to incentives and putting that carrot out. And talk about how we can use this better, and it's doing all our work for us if we just hit those incentives.
That's what's awesome is we're letting the company grow your business for you. Even the field training bonus, the company's funding that entirely. While you're doing field training observation appointments and getting your income, getting your team built up, the company, pays for all that. And I love with the iPad, because I spend a lot of time, and the RVPs know this, contacting them saying, hey, tell me what's working, tell me what's not working. And one of the questions that I ask is, because we have to come up with incentives every month, and we ask them, what was the best incentive we ever did? And it was probably 10 years ago now, but I was told when we had an iPad incentive for future RVPs. I don't know if I think they had to do 5x5 team. Maybe it was 10x10, but so many folks stepped in. Sometimes when we limit something to like the top 250 or the top 500 or whatever, people are like, I'm not that good. I'm not. But when we tell them, if you do this, you get this, everybody can win. Everybody. I mean, we could send out 150,000 iPads this month if everybody took advantage of it. So I love that we have incentives. I always think of Joe Answer Bill when we do any incentive. And Bill always and Joe always said that you got to have an incentive that it's challenging enough, but going into the last weekend of the month, it's doable, even if you haven't done anything. And I think that 3x2500 is perfect for that. And again, RVPs, all of you, if any downlines you have, use this as a tool. This is the company, paying for your recognition. So it's
T-shirts are great, but an iPad, holy moly.
Yeah, that is. I got to tell you, I'm really proud of this. The team that comes up with the incentives, because this was one that kind of came out of nowhere, and they keep coming up with even better stuff. So I think it's great. I'm like you, Bill. I kind of take it for granted sometimes, but it's really fun to be able to promote all this success that we have people have. So it's special times, no doubt about that.
Well, thank you very much, John, and we'll have you on next month or earlier, whenever you're ready.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Bill. I appreciate your leadership and your friendship.
Thank you very much. I do too. James.
Hey, Coach.
Glad to have you, James. Let me give you a little hint of something. It's a rule of thumb. If I said to you, there is a system out there that if you enact it, will pay you $1 billion a year. Income, not net worth billion, pay you $1 billion. See, all these guys are billionaires that you hear out there, but they're not earning $1 billion a year. Here's the rule of thumb I've come to believe in. If the field earns $1 billion, that means that we'll pay $1 billion in death claims. And the company will earn $1 billion in earnings. So who was the company before the company, James?
Art.
So if there was no corporation and there's just an Art Williams system, how much would he be making today?
$1 billion.
Now, there's, let's say, 100 people on this call. How many of those people, you people out there, I got in trouble one time saying that, you people, and it was to young people, by the way. I say, we got a system. If you master it, the master plan earned $1 billion off of this system last year. And how many people would say, I'm following that letter to the T? James, there's about 100 people on this call, let's say. I would dare say, how many are following the Art Williams plan to a T? No more than 20%, the old 80-20% rule.
Mm-hmm.
So, James, what does this mean when you understand this isn't just an idea, this isn't just a fabrication, this is a workable plan to create incomes of $10 to $20 million a year here. Income of 10 to 20 million a year. What does that mean to you, James, that have that potential?
Well, just as you said, just to have that type of potential and to be able to plug into a system. I don't know why it's human nature, sometimes we stray and different things like that, but to be able to plug into a system, be able to copycat a system, I mean, it's like almost unfathomable. I think that, a lot of times we feel like we got to be smart, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's society. I don't understand that, but you feel like you got to be smart and you got to create something, but here you just got to copy. So that turns me on. That gets me excited. We copy the legends, of course, like Art, you following Art. I remember Andy a few weeks ago called you a purist. And I was thinking as he said that, I was like, well, he is too. I mean, it's like the same thing because he sounds just like Art. And so I feel like if we copy the legends, you, Francis Avery, Art Williams, Andy Youngs, and different things like that, we get the same results.
Well, what's that terminology? It's okay to be a copycat as long as you're what?
Copy the right cat.
cat. Right. And so, James, you can always tell when you're off center, when things aren't working in your base shop. Things are not clicking. That means you're following some other cat or you're doing it your way. I think I realized my way doesn't work. It's a Bible study. And the whole point is your way doesn't work. God's way does. If it's not working, that's a consequence. You gotta change that. So that's why it's so critical to go to the Bible that Art Williams wrote. Now he said it verbally. I wrote it down. I was his scribe, so to speak. But I wrote it down. And it's all right here. And so the stuff that we're going to be talking about can created an income to him for $1 billion. But here's the nice part. Yes, he made $1 billion. But look at us. We're making millions. You're going to be making millions. I mean, by the time you're in the next 15 years, James, you'll be over $10 million a year. Just keep doing what you're doing for another 5 years. And then momentum off that would be incredible. And so anyway, James, we're going to be talking now about multiples, building questions, stuff that maybe people have in the back of their minds, questions about building, creating, using the multiples. But the first thing I want to present is you've got to see that the multiples are a tool for wealth. What do you think I mean by that, James?
Well, if you ask Tom Brady how he became wealthy, he obviously tell you, it's football. If you talk to, Elon Musk, he'd tell you because he created cars, the Tesla. I feel like the multiple system is our gift from Art that would allow the average and ordinary person that if you came in and you follow it to create wealth. For years, I mean, I told you when I first moved to Texas, I came out of high school, went to the Air Force, and part of my dream was to play professional football. And obviously, there was a period of time where I realized that was not going to happen. I was like, okay. So then I get recruited into this Primerica thing, And I say to myself, man, I am not screwing this one up. Like, this is my shot. I really thought I wanted to play football, but I really wanted to be wealthy. I just didn't know that then. But then when I found the Primerica system, I'll never forget. I told you in your office, I first moved to Texas. I said, Coach, I said, man, I missed the shot to play professional football, but I'm not gonna screw this thing up here. And if we just come in and copy exactly what you're gonna talk about today, and those leaders like you and like Art, then that's our shot at wealth. That's what I think you mean by that statement. This is our shot.
You know, and I did this thing a week or so ago about fear of missing out. I think a lot of people are thinking, I'm going to get it going one of these days.
Yeah.
And as if 5 years from now, I'm going to be more ready, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year from now, I'm going to really, really, really be ready. And James, you were there at one point in time, and it's amazing how fast 5 years could go.
Oh, yeah.
And you go, wow, you know, and I should have pressed the gas pedal 5 years ago. We've all been there. Talk about that for a second, James, before we get into Art Williams' gift to us.
Yeah, John was saying, like in 2014, Glenn took over the company. I was like, well, wasn't that just yesterday? He was like, was that 7 years ago already? And he said, I think it was 10 years ago we did that iPad thing. I'm like, oh man, I did not realize Glenn's almost been the CEO for 10 years already. A decade has gone by like that. So, you know, you have to be careful when you think, you know, you got time. Because you don't. I mean, things happen. I just got off an airplane leaving Indiana. I was with my dad this weekend, and I noticed that he got a few more gray hairs than normal. And I thought to myself, wow, you know, man, you just really don't have all this time that you think sometimes. You got to go start making things happen now, Coach.
Well, can we have that? That again, Tony? Thank you very much for doing this PowerPoint. We've got some questions that we're going to contact everybody about. And okay, the next one, Tony, if you can. James, talk about this. Are you underestimating the power of the multiples? Underestimate means to place too low a value on. And most people are not astounded by them. They're not awed by them. They're not awestruck by them. They're, I'm embarrassed to talk to people about it because they're judging me. Are you understanding double-digit recruiting? Because everything you've ever wanted for and hoped for is at the other side of double-digit recruiting. These are two fundamentals, the multiples and double-digit recruiting, James, that we're not astounded by. In fact, some of us are embarrassed by these. That's why we don't talk to people about them. Talk about that, James, and how you overcame this.
Well, I think that you hit the nail on the head when you said some of us are embarrassed by recruiting, because you know I think that statement is just one of them pyramids. I think that knock more people out than anything, because people try to avoid that. So that's why you always try to be a little more fancy. You don't want to drive the circles or whatever. It's just because we've been conditioned to be employees for the most part. So we don't understand business. I'll tell you what blew me away. I was in another conference and there was a CEO, very successful business or whatever, in a whole different industry. And the guy, like, I think his business is doing about $10 billion. And they asked him, you know, so what made you approach that industry? And he's in the multiple business. What made you approach that industry the way you did? He said, well, our business, here's what we realized. This is what I realized. He said, I was a tech guy, but I realized people want ownership. And he said, they want equity. And he said, so frankly, we copied our system after Primerica, Primerica Financial Services.
Wow.
And that's where we got the success that we had. And to everybody in that room, because it was all business owners, right? And this, you know, it was like legit big business people in there. They all understood it. They all was like, oh yeah, man, that's just the way to do it. But I think, you know, James Watkins coming from Muncie, Indiana, you know, going to Muncie Central High School, a mediocre growth mindset type, never have been conditioned to understand how powerful something like the multiple system is. And so it's just it's been a progression and being exposed to you and other leaders and in Primerica, just time to really understand what we got our hands on.
What about double-digit recruiting and getting over that hump?
Yeah. Period. I mean, our business works. It's like you always use the mutual fund example. There's a certain number that you really got to get in mutual funds. You got to be putting some money away, and not just a little bit. I mean, $25 is a great start, but if you really wanted that mutual fund to work for you, you got to do a lot more than $25 for most people. And it's the same way in our business. It starts at 10. I mean, it starts like before 10, it doesn't even count, but it starts at 10. And you got to get upward and north of that. And double digit recruiting doesn't just mean, 10, 20, or 30, but I mean, 99 is still double digit recruiting. 100 is double digit recruiting. So, I mean, triple digit recruiting. So you got to get things working to that level.
This is $1 million earner. When you want to be wealthy, you think like this, you talk like this. And if you're not double digiting, the issue is you have to look at your desire to be wealthy. And wealthy is having money come in, whether or not you work for the rest of your life, whatever that amount is. And so the next one, please, Tony. Do you see yourself as a recruiter or a rescuer? Meaning the crusade. When we recruit somebody, we're rescuing them from corporate America. And when was the last time your voice broke telling someone you are trying to sell or recruit when you talked about their lives and their future? And be their bridge over troubled waters. What this refers to, James, is making recruiting a crusade, not just life insurance, not just mutual funds, but the concept of recruiting 100% off one to 1% off 100. We got to look at 100% off one as a whole life policy and be emotional about that and feel sorry for people. The guy's got a whole life policy. We feel sorry for him. Guy's got money in a CD. We feel sorry for him. But if a guy's got a job, do we feel sorry for him? Talk about this, James, and how we got to make recruiting a crusade.
Yeah, I just spent time with him too. My brother-in-law, when he recruited me, he was really just trying to sell me the services. And I get so scared thinking about, man, what if I just would have bought a life policy and did that? I did open up an emergency account at $25 and put away in a mutual fund at $25. He would have sold me the products, but he really changed my life, and he couldn't control what I was going to do, but he really changed my life by offering me the opportunity because he exposed me to so much more. I didn't even know really that I was looking for an opportunity or I needed an opportunity. But when he offered, when he set me down and we talked about it, he just gave me really a shot. So that I just feel like we owe it to everybody else to at least offer them a shot. I think that's what we're supposed to do. We got to at least offer them the opportunity. So when you say that, that's what I was rescued from a life of mediocrity.
Art says that without a crusade, you're dead. Again, we see ourselves as crusaders on the products. But when you make the transition to a crusader, getting people out of corporate America, you remember asking, I was in Sacramento, California doing a meeting, and I said, how many people here want to see do what you've been doing for the rest of your life? And no hands went up. I said, how many people in this room want your children to do for a living what you do? And one guy yelled out, I would kill him. We don't understand. It's not happily ever after. If you're living a life of Riley right now and everything's going, just wait. 13 months ago, they're happy. Then COVID hit in the retail business and in the airline industry and in food business and all these others. So James, we've got to see ourselves as we are the bridge over their troubled waters. We are the answer. And if they're not in Primerica, there is no hope. And that's how you and I feel, and that's why we're successful. Next one, please. James, let's start with the first one. Could you ever go wide by going deep? when you take somebody, people say just go wide, depth happens. Can you ever go wide by going deep?
Absolutely.
How?
Because if I go out and I recruit, if basically if I go out and I'm working with a person down below, those people that I'm recruiting and building around with them, if they leave, then those people come direct to me. So I went wide by going deep. What I'm building there is a replacement business in all aspects. So I'm ensuring that I have something when I build people for my people.
In other words, you recruit me, and from me you get Tony, and from Tony you get Shanika. And what happens if Tony doesn't do something? If Tony bails out, doesn't even fill out her IBA, but you see, again, doesn't even fill out her IBA, vanishes. Who does Shanika belong to?
Me.
How's that? Shouldn't they belong to me, Bill Orender?
You you didn't know Shanika. You didn't
Right.
know her, and frankly, it's up to me. You didn't bring Shanika to the table. I found Shanika through Tony. So, yeah.
So you just went too wide. You got me wide, now Shanika, and now you take Shanika too deep, and that person there, the second one, doesn't do anything. That you can be 3 wide in a week.
Absolutely.
See that difference there? Next one is, do I ever get the names of a person that quits underneath someone and take them as my own direct? In other words, taking the names of a person that quits under somebody, and you work those names. Talk about that, James.
Yeah, those become my names. If that person quits, and those names there, that when I'm making the call and I'm building through there on that list, then that market, that's something that, like Shanika just said down here, you created it. So yes, that's definitely, those are my names.
See, we don't understand that. That's why I'm going to do a whole call on reason I'm so successful. If you want to say that, I'm a maniacal name getter. At the interview, I get names. I've got names from people that said I'm not interested. I said, well, who do you know that is? It might be, right? It's in a better, not in the situation you're in. Because if I got the names, I'm going to build something. And so, James, that talks about if going deep takes all my time, you're going deep. If I keep going deep, and does wide take care of itself?
Yes. Yeah, definitely, coach. If you keep going deep and you keep building people for those people, then obviously, like we just discussed there, there's gonna be some people that don't stick around for whatever reason. You can't control that, and you can go wide through there. That's your discretion. I also believe that part of your schedule should be spent if your calendar, you take an hour where you focus on width, and maybe the rest of the time you focus on depth. So yeah, so you can do both. You got to go deep and you got to go wide, frankly. It's one of the things that John was talking about, that iPad, that got me so excited about is, I said, man, okay, so I put in my schedule, I'm gonna go do my 3x2500 as fast as possible. Then I'm gonna go help my teammates for the rest of the month get the 3x2500 for the rest of the month. But I'm gonna be working with them deep, but I also gonna knock out my width as well.
We talk about they got to get 3 recruits, but is the key to going deep getting one best friend recruit, necessarily 3 recruits, getting them 3?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. One best friend going to another best friend. Like Art had it perfect when he said, like just yesterday, I recruited a guy who was really one of my best friends, and recruited a mentee of his, and it was so easy. And so today I got an appointment with his best friend. And so, it's just like Art said, it's best friends going to best friends, going to best friends when you're doing this thing the right way.
James, I think some people concentrate so hard on getting somebody 3 wide to get a iPad, let's say, they forget to go 3 deep.
Mm-hmm.
And what's faster, going 3 wide or 3 deep? Best friend, because he might not have 3 best friends.
Yeah,
but
3 deep.
1.
3D, it is a lot faster and easier to go deep than it versus going wide. I mean, you can move fast. That's the multiplications. That's why the multiplications kick in, because you can move so much faster when you focus on that. You're exactly right, coach.
Next one, Tony. Excuse me. What will it take to make it click for you? What do you think made it click for the big builders, James? When did it click for you? And what do you think it's going to take for it to click for other people?
I think it's all about association, which you heard me say a lot of times. Because I mean, so many people got so many perspectives, on, are you focusing on the guy's income? You almost got to ask, how is he making that income? But when you look at these guys, when you look at Art, you listen to you listen to Andy, I listen to Francis Avery. For me, it started to click when I started putting 2 and 2 together. I was like, well, wait a minute now. Bill talked about recruiting this guy here, building up underneath them, getting this guy here. Art talked about it, and he drilled it when Art started talking again. Hey, this is the A.L. Williams system. We recruit your best friend. They go out, recruit his best friend over, and you do that over and over and over again. Just being around you guys finally made it sink into me, because frankly, I think, it's just human nature. When I came in, I saw F&A. I got to do the products. Okay. So we little Dave Ramsey's. That's what I used to say all the time. Like, I'm like Dave Ramsey. I teach people about money. That's, and Charles Whitener is so funny, because Charles would be like, James, you ain't gonna ever get where you trying to go doing it the way you doing it. And he was like, James, quit doing them damn F&As. But anyway, if that's what you if that's what you do, that's what you do. But I didn't understand it. I just didn't understand. And man, it's really started to click, coach, as you started doing more meetings like this. Man, you brought in Francis Avery, who did the builder school for us, and I was like, okay, all right, this is making sense to me now. And then some other associations, like the groups and stuff like that talk about building, like Shanika's on here and other friends that I have and different things like that, just solidified it in my brain.
Well, Art says in this book here, you have to have one heartbeat. And so one heartbeat isn't 20 heartbeats, it's one.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're like a broken record, aren't you? People say, well, Bill, you never change. Like Angela said, Art has one speech. He just keeps giving it over and over again. And that's you, isn't it, James? You're a one-trick pony.
Yep. I mean, that's what you have to be. I mean, so many times we try to find a message to fit everybody, when we just need to use the same old message and find the people that get it like you get it. And I mean, that's why we got a double-digit recruit and go through so many people, because not everybody's going to get it. Even though you're saying it, even though you might be the best teacher, you might be explaining it. Not everybody. I think it has so much to do what's going on in their head and what they see and what they hear. But when you find, a student, that copies it, it's well worth all the other aggravation that you got to go through. When you,
and people find themselves here. It might not be their bag of tea to do the multiples and build big hierarchy, but man, we got some great securities producers, because we recruited them with the multiple system in mind, and they came in and they diverted like you. Say, well, I want to be a pro football player, but it didn't work out, so you diverted to this.
mm-hmm.
You see, but you wanted success, you wanted wealth. And so next one, Tony. Do I call my new people, or do they call them? I talked to somebody the other day that's been around forever. They recruited 2 people in February and have no recruits so far this month. And I said, she said, I'm trying to get my people to book appointments, but they're falling through, and I can't get them to set appointments. I said, James, whose names are those?
Those are my names.
What do you mean by that? You recruit Bill Orender and say, well, Bill, set up appointments and I'll help you. Is that what you do? What do you do?
Absolutely not. I was like, Bill, here's the only time you might, yeah, exactly. Those are my names. I mean, I might let you sit there with me because we're using your phone, but I'm gonna be right there to control that whole point of contact. You know, it's like the toughest part of business is setting an appointment. So I'm not gonna turn that over to a baby. I'm not gonna let them control my schedule, control, you know, my checkbook and different things like that by controlling the appointments. You gotta protect the market from the newest person because they're gonna be the ones that kind of screw everything up. So no, I'm gonna do as much of that, all that as possible. I'm making every call, I'm protecting that list, I'm making all those things happen until, you know, frankly, you've been around long enough to understand that process and you're on your own pretty much.
You know, James, there's a guy in Duncanville who's the head coach, basketball coach. And Duncanville High School is a legendary high school in basketball. And, you know, if they're not going to win the state championship, they're going to be pretty close. And what if you introduced to that guy and that guy said, James, this is great. You know, one appointment, you know, I'm going to be gone for a month. What are you going to say? Let's get back together in a month. This guy is known by everybody, head basketball coach, coach of coaches, and he's got hundreds of names in his cell phone. And you're going to say, we'll get back to you when you come back in a month. Think about that, James. What would you do?
Heck no, we're gonna call them people. We're gonna get working.
But I'm gone, James. I'm gone for a month.
Hey, I'm gonna get this thing going for you. When you come back in a month, I'll have a team in place for you when you get back.
Again, you don't need me, do you? You
Nope,
need the teams
absolutely. Like
and my credibility.
Jimmy Meyer said, he told I might get the month wrong. Said he told Joe Enser, said this is like July. I said, yeah, man, but I don't want to get started until September because you know I'm going, you know, summer's over, all this other kind of stuff. And Joe said, all right, great. We got a class coming up this weekend just for people to start in September. He said, oh, you do really? He's like, yes. So let's go ahead and get that going. I'll get everything going for you. Come to class. I'll start building your team. And when you get ready in September, you have a team.
Well, James, let's assume you're the head coach at Duncanville High School. And you say to me, you know, I have no interest in this, but I've got 5 or 6 people, but that might be interested. Now what? Are you going to let Bill Orender walk away with 5 or 6, even though I'm not interested? What would you do, James?
Well, if you're gonna introduce me to those 5 or 6 people, I'm gonna call those 5 or 6 people, get those people recruited, and I'm gonna call you back, coach, and say, hey, I'm gonna call you back and say, now you sure you don't want to make some money with me? Because at this point, all these people that I talk to, they're excited. So either I'm gonna make some money or we gonna make some money. I mean, which one you want that to be? And that greed factor normally gets them in.
Well, James, answer this question. Do we get people into Primerica or do we force people into Primerica?
We force them in. We force them in by building something underneath them. We got to give them something to lose. Basically, we go in and work through and make things happen, and then we call them back with some good news and let them know, hey, man, your friend Bill, your friend Tony was pretty excited. She's excited, got her going. She got a couple people going to be getting started with us. You sure you're not in, Bill? You sure you don't want in on this?
You see, most people, what they do is they take a seed and put it on the ground and say, if it wants to be a corn stalk bad enough, it'll grow roots. And we wonder why it doesn't work and it blows away. Well, he disappeared. Did you get the names? Well, no, I was going to get them after I filled out the IBA. I recruited 3 people last month. How many you get? None. We're doing it to ourselves, aren't we, James?
Absolutely. And yeah, Coach, I got to give you credit for that because you drilled that in our heads for years and years and years. Like, man, it's all about the names. It's about the names. And how many names did you get? I can remember when you first started teaching that. I used to hate it. I know he's gonna ask me how many names did I get, and then I got it. Like, man, that's my pay right there. I need the names. I did that.
See, we're trying to get IBAs, and that pays the company. But you get the names, that pays you because if you have one good interview with a guy who's credible and you get 3 to 5 names, you're off and running to build an empire, aren't you?
Absolutely. Had that happen to me last night. I'm like, all right, let's go. I got one. So yes.
And you got the names, right?
Yep, got the names,
So,
got the credible part is the big thing. I mean, man, I always tell them all the time, a recruit is somebody with the market, credibility in that market, and willing to introduce me to that market. Now I didn't say nothing about the $99 IBA in there. If I got those 3 things right there, I could make everything else happen. We go get that IBA.
James, if the guy last night, let's assume you didn't get any names, and he calls you this morning and said, James, I'm not going to do this. What do you have left over for your efforts?
Nothing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So you got the names, and he calls you this morning at 11 o'clock, and you've already called all 3 people already. And I say, James, I've been thinking about it. I'm not interested. What would you say?
Well, I'd let him know. Straight up. I mean, I let him know, man, I got a meeting with Tony and Ray and Phyllis. And you might, before you make that decision, you might just hold on for a few minutes. And let's go see these people. I mean, you can always quit, just hold it off. Quit in the next day or 2.
Let me show you something.
Let me show you. Let me prove to you that this thing can work for you.
Next one, please. Say again, we know how to build hierarchies. If you are a builder, how do I determine who do I spend time with, James?
Man, I did that wrong so much, but just the people that popping their heads up, the people that are doing, if they putting you in front of people, that's who you spend your time with. Okay, that's like people with credibility, not just the ones that's talking the story and they really want it bad, and you got to call them and they don't have anybody to put you in front of, but the people that are doing what you need them to do to move things forward. You got to be in front of people. So you spend your time with those people putting you in front of people.
I know Hector last Friday said, I do not spend time with unmotivated people.
Yep, he sure did.
And so what are some of the check marks for who do you spend time with? How do you determine who to spend time with? What are the check marks? Meaning Zoom calls, managers meetings, doing any apps. How do you determine that?
For me, like I said, coach, is if you got a market, you can put me in front of market, then that's my first big indicator. Yeah, of course, I want you, you need to be showing up and all of that stuff like that happens. But the first thing is, if we're spending time together, if I'm with you, are we getting results for your family and my family? I feel like, and then even for those that, I guess you run out of market, but you're willing to go out there and do the things I tell you to do to build the market, like go get referrals, maybe call some of the people we didn't close or some people we did close and get some names. If you're willing to go build it, because that's what our business really is prospecting. It's always prospecting, man. I knew when I moved to Texas, people would ask me all the time, well, were you ever scared that you wouldn't make it? No, because I knew I was going to go meet people. Whatever I had to do, I was going to go meet people. And most people, once they run out of the initial warm market and that dries up, they're not willing to go meet anybody else. They're not willing to go put themselves out there. And that's why they struggle so much.
Well, they call that friendship farming. And you're always making new friends and I don't know of anyone that knows just 2 people in their life. They have new friends. Their kids go to a new school. You go to a church. You join a church group. You're always meeting new friends. But the big thing to me is if I get a good, credible person and I get names, I'm off and running.
Exactly.
I never run out of names after that. I'm never sitting there. I don't have anybody to call. Well, you didn't do the right things with those people, right, James?
Absolutely. I used to tell a story all the time, Coach. I had this lady's ministry I supported, and she was a college campus missionary. And maybe like 3-4 years in a row, I donated money to her. And she called me once a year. Hey, James. Hey, I just want to meet with you and go over what the Lord did on campus and blah, 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 blah. And we meet at a Starbucks. And every time she showed me the pictures of, her witnessing the people and bringing souls to the Lord. And at the end of every time we got together, she's like, James, 2020 was a great year and God really moved. Who are two people that I should, and she get two names. It took me like 2, maybe 3 years. Then I finally figured out, I said, you're getting referrals from me, huh? I said, you're getting names from me, aren't you? She said, yeah, well, they train us to get names at every appointment. And I think for me, that's when I said, Bill Orender been saying that for years. Here this little girl is, she getting 2 names from everybody she talked to. I'm making sure I get names from everybody. It began to come together for me then. That was another one of those incidents.
Yeah, it's a click moment. When you make up your mind to be wealthy and you get names, that's your road into it. Next one, Tony. Monetize 4D. Again, think about this. How would you like to make $500 a week, every week? $2,000 in a week by going 4D. By doing what it says on page 7 of the locker room notes. Going 4 wide in a week, very difficult. Going 4 deep in a week. And just think, every one of those people buys the product and you're the only one licensed. I am flabbergasted and astounded that page 7 is not being utilized. What is he saying here? Take everybody 4 deep.
Yes.
And very few people do it. Look at that. You make $2,000 in a week versus if you go 4 wide, if it takes you a month, you make $2,000 in a month. Which is easier to make, faster to make? How hard is it to go 4 wide in a month? Not that easy. 4 deep in a week? Easy. Talk about that, James.
Yeah, well, I mean, Coach, you kind of said it all right there. I mean, I'm just looking over here. I'm like, wow, yes, that is true. It is a lot easier to go 4 deep than it is to go 4 wide. And if you're looking at it from an income standpoint, I'm like $2,000 in a week. There it goes right there. Man, if you take that thing down to China, I mean, maybe you go 8 deep, maybe you go, 12 deep, whatever. But that's thousands of dollars a week doing it like that, Coach, versus focusing on for the whole entire month.
James, they say the teacher gets more out of it than the students. What did you get out of this whole exercise?
Well, that right there was like a slap in the face. I was like, okay, I got these recruits I'm about to go deep with. But the whole thing is, I guess that I get out of it is you constantly have to be reminded. Art Williams, system is a system for builders, and you constantly. I don't think you can ever get too much of this, Coach. I think you always have to stay on message and stay on point as much as you can. And this thing just takes on a life of its own when you're doing the right things. I think we get sidetracked sometimes. If you get a good security sale or something like that, and you start thinking, man, maybe that's the business we in. That sure was a lot easier to call the client up and move 50 grand from here to there. And but to grow a hierarchy, that's the play. Distribution always wins out in the end.
There's a guy named Lee Westwood who came in second the other day in a golf tournament, came in second a week before, and he's been going through a sports psychologist. And he said, what we've been working on is me just going through the process, keeping to the process, keeping those fundamentals in front of me, and the results will follow. Keep fundamentally sound. Like Art says, if you keep doing the right things long enough, you will build an empire. And the things we talked about today, James, are what? Right out of the Art Williams manual. It's not Bill Orender. I might have put a little thing on there too, but this is right out of page 7. So this is a person, if he were here today and was his count, he'd be making $1 billion a year off of page 7.
Wow.
And we're thinking, well, so James, well, how does this give you hope and for the next 5 years, the kind of money that people are making, like Sam just went to 3 million.
Mm-hmm.
There's more money coming. And if the math is there for you to be the next Sam Shepard, isn't it? Maybe take you 5, 6, 8 years, but it's there, isn't it, James?
Yes. I mean, just to say that the math is there when you said 10 million in the next 10, 15 years or something, like I was like, wow. I mean, and you've always done that, but just to know that it's possible, I think we started out and we were talking about we were rescuing people, the things that we have access to and the possibilities, I would have never had that. I would have never happened to me in my former career, my occupation, or anything like that. And most of the world is just designed for mediocrity. But here, I got a shot, as long as you do the right things, which is what you just covered. So yeah, I mean, I I got more out of today's exercise than probably anybody else.
Well, James, end on this. One of my favorite mindsets is, what if Babe Ruth had only been asked to bunt? That to me sent chills up my spine, because all you were ever asked to do prior to our system was bunt. Now you're saying we have a system for you to hit home runs, James. And now you see yourself as a home run hitter, don't you, James? And you look back and say, why was I satisfied with being a bunter? Look at what's happened. Talk about that, James, and we'll end.
Ah, yeah, you end on a tough one there because that is true. That I mean, that's one of those things you ask yourself every day. It's like, man, how did I ever think so small? When you accomplish something, you're like, how did I ever think so small? So you always challenge. I love what Hector says. He said the other day, he said, I had to keep reading all these books and I had to keep myself in the environment because what I'm doing, nobody in my family has ever done before. So like I know what it is I'm working to accomplish. It's never been done before, but it's possible here. I got a coach like you, and then a ton of other friends, that are having a great deal of success. You know, I can't be nothing but excited, and just a little anxious about making it all happen and making sure you don't miss out. It's like, man, I got to make sure we make this thing happen.
And going back to Muncie, does that help you to
E-
realize what could have
Every
been?
time, every time. As soon as I pull into the city, I'm already like thinking, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? And it was cold there too this weekend, but yes, it always puts things in perspective because you don't really, Primerica's so much ultra success, you don't really realize how far you've come until you go back and you look and say, well, dang, okay. I mean, like I ain't totally satisfied, but look where I come from and different things like that. So yes.
Well, tell us about that new house we're going to see next week, James. And you showed me a picture. We'll have to show that one day, where you came from and that new house you're building. And Carol and I are excited about seeing it next week. And how happy is Elena for what you've done to be able to give her the gift of that new house? Is it worth it?
Yeah, it's like you've always said, your success blesses others. Man, my wife and I, we've been friends in each other's lives since we were kids. So I mean, I think I was like 14, maybe 15, when we met. And so she's my best friend, of course. And to see her face, when, she looks at this house, it's like, I know for sure, man, I mean, I'm proud that we stuck in the game, but I know for sure, man, that she ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, she could have
I
been
mean,
stuck back in Muncie with a supermarket manager,
I
right?
tease her all the time. I say, you would have been the Hills department store if you see if you wouldn't have married me. You still would have been there. That was her college job.
And she
But
probably says you're right, right?
yeah, words just can't express how when you make the decision, how it affects everybody around you. I mean, so yeah, we can't wait to have you guys out next week.
James, I can talk all day to you. I don't see your daughter that often, but I see your son. And when he looks at you, he is so proud. What does that mean? Because he cherishes what you've done with your life. and you are a hero to him. And that's worth it, isn't it? Talk about that for a second, and we will stop. I promise you.
Yeah, that is, my wife and having my son in the business with me and having him with me. I see that, and it just feels good to be his hero. He says it in so many words, and it adds pressure too. Don't get me wrong, because he's like, Dad, now when we go to this event, now we walk on the stage, right? So it's like, oh no, I can't be looking bad in front of my son over here. And so, but no, it's just a beautiful thing. I really thought, and I am thankful to God because in so many ways I've already won in life. And we got a bunch more to do because it's a bunch more of we got a bunch more goals and dreams and a lot more family members and stuff like that we want to be able to help. And so there's a lot more to do, but man, it is truly, truly, truly a blessing to see the look in their eyes. I'm talking about all of them, Andre, Taylor, and Elena, which that is my home team, and that's really who matters most to me. When you come home, I've been gone. I can't got straight off the plane here, Coach, at 9:15, and I came to the office. I still live 45 minutes away from the office, and so I didn't go straight home. I called my wife and told her, "Hey, I got to go to work. I'll be home tonight." And my daughter, 24 years old, a 24-year-old can be self-absorbed as they are. She called and said, "Dad, I miss you." Just melted my heart. Like, man, I ain't
Oh,
seen my
wow.
baby,
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
when you got people like that counting on you, man, you just got to go do what you got to go do and win.
Like Art said, so you had a wow moment, haven't you? And it's worth
Yes,
it. Wow.
yes, yes,
You're
sir.
living a wild life. You built a wild business. And I'm glad you're not, didn't play professional football because you couldn't have helped anybody else and you had bad knees.
That's right.
All right, everybody. Thank you, James.
All
Bye,
right,
everybody.
thanks, Coach.
Talk to you next week. Thank you, Tony, for all your help. Bye-bye.